So when we have our mission, we have our vision, we have a bunch of standards that we need to adhere to, how do we make sure that all of that works together? And the answer is, we can use a guide system, governance enterprise IT system. And we can use that both for the frameworks, the standards, the bodies of knowledge that we use in IT to ensure that we're aligned with the business goals and the vision of our business. And some of the things we can use COBIT5 for to make sure everything works together could be the ISO standards. It could be COSO, ITIL, TOGAF, Prince2, or the PMI PMBOK. And that can help us ensure that everything we do in IT aligns with the business's goals. And as with anything else we do, it is very critical that we have senior management's buy-in. If we do not have the top-down approach, we will, just like so many other things, not be successful. COBIT5 is made up by 5 principles, hence the name. Principle 1. We meet the stakeholders' needs. And if you remember back to Domain 1, stakeholders is anyone who has a vested interest in whatever you are doing. And for them, creating value can mean many different things, and they are at times conflicting, which is why it is so critical for us to have the buy-in from the board of directors and the senior leadership in our organization. Because ultimately, if we can't reach a consensus between our stakeholders, they are going to make the hard decision. And for each decision we make, we need to ask who's going to benefit from this, who's going to bear the risk, and which resources are required. And then we take the stakeholders' needs and we make that into the enterprise's practical strategy. Principle 2. Covering the enterprise end to end. And the name of that principle is somewhat self-explanatory. We cover the entire organization. And the thing that is nice with COBIT5 is it is agnostic, meaning it is able to work with all the standards, the policies, the procedures, the frameworks we use, and it works with any governance system. And as part of covering the enterprise end-to-end, we need to make sure that all the functions and the processes within the enterprise is covered and not just the IT functions. We treat IT as an asset that needs to be used just like any other asset by everyone in the enterprise. Then we get to principle number 3, applying a single integrated framework. And that is the single integrated framework that, well, handles the interactions between all the other frameworks and the standards we use. So as mentioned before, COBIT5 is the overarching governance and management framework integrator. That is the framework that makes everything else work together. And the reason I have chosen to cover COBIT5 a little more in depth than some of the other frameworks that we could have used is because it is also made by Asaka. And when you read the book and you do the practice questions, you will see there are more COBIT5 questions and curriculum than any of the other frameworks. Principle 4. Enabling a holistic approach. And holistic just really means comprehensive, or that it covers everything. And we want that holistic approach, just like we want everything in our organization to be secure. Because if we forget 1 or 2 departments, the program is not going to be as efficient as if we covered everybody. And the holistic approach in the COBIT5 framework has 7 categories. Just like so much other on this certification, you don't need to know number 5 is this, but I would know all of them and why we use them. If we look here at the first 4 categories, Category 1, Principles, Policies, and Frameworks. That is what everything ties back to. Just like Domain 1 for the system certification is the foundation that everything else builds on top of. So we use Category 1 to translate what we want into practical guidance for our day-to-day management. And for that, we need to have the proper processes in place. And those are the practical things. When you do this, you need to do that. It's a process we have mapped out where we have our workflow and people know exactly what to do. Then obviously, we're going to be influenced by our organizational structures. And those are the key decision makers in our organization. And then we also need to consider the culture, the ethics, and the behavior that is normal in our organization. And it's important to consider because we need to build a solution that's going to work in our environment, not just a generic environment. We need to tailor it to fit us. Category 5, 6, and 7 are our resources. And the information is both the information we produce and the information that we use. Category 6 is our services, our infrastructure, and our applications. And that's all the IT stuff that enables the business to do what they need. Our servers, our routers, our switches, our firewalls, the operating system, the applications, all that stuff that makes everything work. And then finally, category 7, people, skills, and competencies. If we do not have the right people and they don't have the right skills or the right competencies, then we need to ensure that they get them or we hire them. So as you can see, the fourth principle of the COBIT5 model, it sort of makes sense. Everything else feeds back to support and make sure that we can act on our principles, our policies, and the frameworks we choose. And the fifth and final COBIT principle is separating governance from management. And we do that because governance and management are very different. They have different structures and they serve entirely different purposes. Governance would be the board of directors. They decide on our ethics, they decide on the direction we're going, and then it's the responsibility of management to translate that into actionable items. And management in this case is executive management. That's the CEO and the rest of the C-suite and probably the VPs. And your job is then to assist and guide the management level and the C-level executives and translate the vision and the mission from governance into actionable items. And it is also the board of directors' responsibility to ensure that the stakeholder needs, the threats and the opportunities, our strengths and our weaknesses is used to determine our enterprise goals. And they're the ones who ultimately make the decisions. And then management is responsible for the plans being built, that the activities are being run and monitored, and it's in alignment with the direction set by governance so we can achieve our enterprise objectives. And these are all the processes for COBIT5, and since you're IT security and not the head of IT in general, you will only have a part of this. But you do need to understand how COBIT works, just like you need to understand how everything else works. So download the slides and take a look at this as well.